Okay, folks, how you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Let me just make sure we're streaming here. Let's see. Yeah, looks like we're up. And let's see if I can actually hear anything. Hey, folks, how you guys? Yes, we can. Okay, well, we're in business. Um, Thank you, whoever you are who's out there watching. Looks like we actually do have somebody watching. That's nice. And welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a lot out there to talk about, so let's jump right into it. First thing that I want to talk about before we actually get started with the, subjects or whatnot, is this is what we were working on last week. So, this is kind of like a shaping up to be sort of a fantasy kind of scene here. We've got our hobbit halfling woman person in the middle being attacked by goblins. Right. And it's coming along, It's not looking half bad. I think we can make it look better. So I want to take this might actually be stretched over a couple of streams because I want to actually push myself and try to make it look as good as I can make it look, right? Because a lot of times with stuff like this, I get discouraged and I kind of give up halfway through. So I'm going to try not to do that this time and try to see this all the way to the end. And I think to make it even extra super hard, I'm going to use traditional media on this because, like I said in the last stream, I haven't really done anything in traditional media in a long, long time. So who knows, I could end up completely ruining this entire thing. Right? It might look pretty good once we're done inking it, and then when I start to color it, I could completely just screw it up. So, what you gonna do? But hey, folks, if you never actually push yourself, then you never grow, right? You never improve. So that's what I got to do because, it's all about getting better. It's all about the next thing that you do is better than the last thing that you did. And, improving yourself, especially when you're an artist. When you're an artist, it's like you should never stand still, when you're an artist. You should always try to hit that next level, hit that next plateau, until it's at a point where you feel like you've, plateaued, done the best you can do. And if you feel that your art at this point is like, where it's at, then that's completely up to you. It's arbitrary up to you, but your personal growth, I mean, I especially believe that, and it's a good, philosophy for anything that you do, really. It doesn't matter, whatever hobby or whatever you do professionally, whatnot. You should always strive to get better at it, you know what I mean? And that goes, for everybody. So, I mean, me personally, as far as like my own artistic, like, fulfillment goes, I don't think I'm there. I think that I could be doing much, much better than I am. So that's why I gotta push it, because, like, if you stay stagnant, if you don't keep moving, then you die, right, folks? So, anyhow, big news out there right now. Thank you to our 2 concurrent viewers, whoever you are. Thanks for tuning in. Big news out there right now in the world as far as politics goes is Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away, unfortunately. We all kind of knew that this was happening because, she's, what was she, 89, 90 years old, something like that. And she's had a on and off battle with cancer over the years. If I remember right, it was in the news not that long ago that she went in for, to have an operation to remove tumors, that kind of thing. Right. But even, the thing is, even when you get that old as she was, let's look up exactly how old she was, because I don't really know exactly, how exactly old was she? Okay, 1933. Wow. Nicknames: Kiki, Notorious RGB, RBG, Notorious RGB. That's funny. 1933. So, what is that? 90 was, Jesus Christ. 87? Yeah, so once you get to be, no. Was it 87? Yeah, I guess that is 87 years, right? Because 2030, she would be 100. So, it's, yeah, so I guess, yeah, 87 years old. Um, Shit. I mean, when you get to be that old, stuff just happens. Your body starts, you start getting medical problems left and right, and just trying to be normal and go about your normal day. You're taking all this medication, shit like that. So, that's just normal life expectancy, right? And probably a little bit more than normal life expectancy, I think. So, we're seeing out there lots of people celebrating her life and her accomplishments, and in particular the advancements that she made in regards to women's rights and feminism, that kind of thing, right? That's great. Um, but that sort of elephant in the room right now, the turd in the punch bowl, is what is going to happen as far as the next Supreme Court nominee, right? So, if you remember, um, back in, I wrote all this shit down here. How come I'm not seeing it? What the hell? If you remember way back in the day, um, when Barack Obama was trying to get Eric Garland confirmed for his Supreme Court pick, the Republicans blocked it. And that was, pretty much unprecedented. And you had all of these different, Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and everybody else talking about how they should not, you know, allow a Supreme Court nominee to go through during an election year, right? And that was a big fucking deal. And Obama, because he was, I don't know, weak, I guess, didn't just make, what he could have done is he could have just made I think they call it um, it's an appointment when a non-session, like basically when Congress is not in session, they can, you can appoint, right? And that way it doesn't have to go through the confirmation. And he could have done that. He could have got Eric Garland in there if he really wanted to, right? Or Merrick Garland. That's his name, Merrick Garland. And he didn't. For one reason or another, Obama basically kowtowed and allowed himself to be a victim of the process, right? Well, lo and behold, that when that happened, right? That was 10 months before the election in 2016. Okay. So almost a year, right? And the Republicans held up that nomination for a year and wouldn't let it go through until after the election because, they basically wanted to win the election so that they could choose who gets to be on the court, right? And, yeah, so, well, we have roughly, I think, 54 days now till the 2020 election. And you would think, to be consistent and to not be hypocrites, the Republicans would follow that precedent that they set out and not ram through a Supreme Court justice nomination, right? Of course, that's exactly what they're fucking doing, is ramming through a Supreme Court nomination. So I want to show you guys here. We're going to go to Twitter. And we are going to go and look up, Mitch McConnell. All right, so let's go here. Let me turn on my monitor so that you guys can all see. All right, there we go. Let's go up. Mitch McConnell. Okay, and what is wrong with my keyboard? I don't know. It was fucked up. All right, here is Leader McConnell. Now we're going to scroll down, and this here is Mitch McConnell's statement on the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So please remember, this was the guy that held up Obama's nomination for 10 months in a row and wouldn't let it go through, and said that they would never allow it during an election year. This is exactly what came. This was the message from the Republicans, right? The message from the Republicans was the public should have a choice in selecting who the next Supreme Court justice is, and that referendum will be the election, and we have never appointed a Supreme Court justice during an election year, and we're not going to start now. Right, that's what he said in 2016. Here's what he's saying now. Okay. McConnell's statement on the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell made the following statement on the passing of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Senate and the nation mourn the sudden passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the conclusion of her extraordinary American life. Justice Ginsburg overcame one personal challenge and professional barrier after another. She climbed from the modest Brooklyn upbringing to a seat on our nation's highest court and into the pages of American history. Justice Ginsburg was thoroughly dedicated to the legal profession and to her 27 years of service on the Supreme Court. Her intelligence and determination earned her respect and admiration throughout the legal world, and indeed throughout the entire nation, which now grieves alongside her family, friends, and colleagues. In the last midterm election before Justice Scalia's death in 2016, Americans elected a Republican Senate majority because we pledged to check and balance the last days of a lame duck president's second term. We kept our promise. Since the 1880s, no Senate has confirmed an opposite party president's Supreme Court nominee in a presidential election year. By contrast, Americans re-elected our majority in 2016 and expanded it in 2018 because we pledged to work with President Trump and support his agenda, particularly his outstanding appointments to the federal judiciary. Once again, we will keep our promise. President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. Yeah. There you go, folks. You know, you can't be more hypocritical than that. All right. Now, we're going to look at some other things here. Okay. Because we're going to look at a video here of a bunch of Republicans talking, you know, back in 2016. So you just saw it straight from the camel's mouth right there. Straight from the horse's, you know, anus, whatever the hell you want to say, right? Mitch McConnell doesn't give a shit. And it's just being straight out about his hypocrisy. Right. Let's see what the rest of these guys got to say. Because here I've got a video from CNN, and it's got Ted Cruz, and it's got Lindsey Graham, and Mitch McConnell talking about, you know, talking about the appointing Merrick Garland. So this is 2016. 2016 wasn't that long ago, folks. All right, 3.5 years. Here we go.
In the last year of the first term,
you know, let me turn that up
Lindsey Graham
a little bit, because I don't know if you can hear that. Because he just said, I want you to use my words against me. Okay, so let me make sure that volume is good and turned up here, right? My desktop audio turned up all the way. Let's play that one more time, okay? Let's go back to about right there. All right.
Use my words against me.
Eerie picture of exactly what is happening right now. Watch.
I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right. We're setting a precedent here today, Republicans are, that in the last year at least of a lame duck 8-year term, I would say it's going to be a 4-year term, that you're not going to feel.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I completely screwed that up. I forgot to turn on the monitor. Sorry, folks. I'm looking at the wrong monitor. Let's start that over one more time. Okay, because, you know, I want you guys to see it. I want you to see it. Right? Because this is Lindsey Graham's words. Okay? Here we go.
I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right.
You can use my words against me. Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president make that decision. You can use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right. I hope everybody out there is using Lindsey Graham's words against him, because 100% he is going to turn around and say that it's justified that Trump choose a Supreme Court nominee. He is going to. He's 100% is going to go back on his word here. And he'd be a hypocrite. And this, I hope they put this inside of ads and stuff. You know what I mean? I really hope that, you know what, I'm going to let me just kind of decrease the size of this here. I'm going to move this down a little because I don't want my stream to get nailed by the YouTube robots and for them to just shut me off, right? So maybe this will do a little bit to get rid of that shit. Right. So anyway, yeah, let's use his words against him. Okay. But anyway, there's a little bit more.
We're setting a precedent here today, Republicans are, that in the last year, at least of a lame duck 8-year term, I would say it's going to be a 4-year term, that you're not going to fill a vacancy of the Supreme Court based on what we're doing here today. That's going to be the new rule.
The next justice could fundamentally alter.
That's going to be the new rule. Let's all remember that. Let's remember that, because Lindsey Graham is 100% going to go back on his word here. But that's what he fucking said. Okay, now, let's see. Here comes Mitch McConnell. Let's see what kind of ridiculous horse shit he's going to lay on us.
The direction of the Supreme Court and have a profound impact on our country. So, of course, the American people should have a say in the court's direction.
I don't think we should be moving forward on a nominee in the last year.
So, okay, Mitch McConnell, the American people should have a say in the court's direction, right? He already went back on his word there. He already is a hypocrite. There's Marco Rubio right here.
This president's term, I would say that if it was a Republican president.
Wait, let's listen to that one more time.
I don't think we should be moving forward on a nominee in the last year of this president's term. I would say that if it was a Republican president.
I guarantee you he goes on his back on his word. See, this is GOP 101, folks. Okay? GOP 101. Completely just lying to us.
President Obama is eager
Ted Cruz, the man with the most punchable face in the country,
to appoint Justice Scalia's replacement this year. But do you know, in the last 80 years, we have not once has the Senate confirmed a nomination made in an election year, and now is no year to start. This is for the people to decide. I intend to make 2016 a referendum on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah. You know what, folks? This is the year that we're going to start. All right. I'm serious. You know what? This is the year that Osea goes, okay, you know, I don't intend, you know, we've never...
California homeowners...
Fuck off. Get out of here. We've never, you know, had a Supreme Court, you know, during an election year, and I don't intend for it to start. This is the year that it'll start. Because they're going to ram it through. They're going to ram it through because there really, you know, isn't much that we can do about it. And they know it. And this was the plan since the beginning. See, they lied to us. We all knew they were lying to us. Right? If you didn't think they were lying to us in 2016, you're a moron. That's what I want you guys to understand, right? I know that I have some Republicans and some conservatives that watch my channel. And I want you conservatives out there that watch this right now to just look at what those men were saying and then what they do. They were lying to you back then, right? It had nothing to do with any of the shit that they were saying. It had nothing to do with, the public having a choice, right, of who gets to be in the Supreme Court. It had nothing to do with making it a referendum on the president. It had nothing to do with some kind of tradition that we don't appoint Supreme Court justices. We don't confirm Supreme Court justices in an election year. All of that was bullshit, right? And we told you that it was bullshit. The liberals and the Democrats and the progressives, when we stood up and cried foul, and all of you fucking people turned around and said, that we were full of shit and we were sore losers and all that other crap, right? Here you go. They lied to us. Now, here's the thing. Most of you right now don't give a shit. I can tell you that right now. Most of all of the conservatives out there, that the conservative people that watch my channel, they're not going to fucking care. They're not going to care. And if you're a conservative and you don't care that you got lied to in your face, that they lied straight to your fucking face, right? That your leaders don't have integrity. If you don't give a shit, you're part of the problem, right? This is why what we just saw right there is why our government is ineffectual, right? It's why we can't get, another stimulus package during the middle of a fucking pandemic, right? It's why we can't get any meaningful legislation passed when it comes to things like healthcare or immigration, right? Or anything. It's why, the only things that we can get passed in this country is a military budget. That's it. That's the only thing that passes. We can't even pass a normal fucking budget in this country. And it's because of that. It's because the politicians that are in charge don't care. All they give a shit about is their own power. You saw it right there. And they'll lie to your fucking face. They'll lie right at you as their other hand is going around and trying to steal your wallet. Because they don't give a shit. It's not about, they don't care. It's not about, playing by the rules. It's not about tradition. It's not about any shit like that. It's all just about money, power, right? And if you ever thought otherwise, you're a goddamn moron. I'm sorry. When is the time? Because here's the thing, right? You see, there's people on the left right now. There's an argument going on the left where some people are saying that the best way to appeal to conservatives out there is not to call them names and to treat them like human beings and treat them like they're intelligent and try to see where they come from and understand why they vote for the things they vote for, etc., 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 and then try to use logic and reason in order to get them to come over to your side, right? That's great. We should be doing that, okay? But there's only so far that goes, okay? There's only so much that you can appeal to someone's, shared experience and their humanity. And if they just continuously, not only do they continuously not listen to you, but not give a shit and actually revel in the fact that they don't play by any rules and you do, right? And there's only so much that you can take. It's kind of like trying to reason with a bully. You can only reason so far, You're in grade school or whatever, this bully keeps fucking flushing your head down the toilet, shit like that, right? You try to reason with them, you try to talk to them, you try to get them to quit kicking your ass every fucking day. And eventually there's only so far that goes until, you don't have a choice anymore and you have to make a decision. And that decision is, what am I going to do about this asshole flushing my fucking head down the toilet and taking my lunch money every day? Am I going to roll over like a fucking simp and let him do it? Or am I going to turn around and kick him in the goddamn nuts? right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. You know, that's where we're at. The Republicans are flushing our heads down the goddamn toilet every day, lying to us, cheating, constantly fucking cheating at elections, trying to rig the fucking post office so that mail-in ballots don't get counted, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. You know, every election year, just like voter suppression, kicking people off voter rolls, right? Underfunding polls in, you know, the voter voting stations and polls and stuff like that in democratically held, you know, districts, shit like that, right? Trying to pass fucking like voter ID laws, all this stuff to rig and cheat and lie and steal, and we let them get away with it constantly, you know. And at what point do you just like decide like it's, you know, it's no longer worth trying to talk to them. It's no longer, you know, you can't reason with them. You can't reason because they don't want to be reasoned with. And maybe they need to get knocked down a couple of fucking pegs, right? Before they like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to like knock the fucking bully out. And then the next day at school, maybe he calms down a little fucking bit. Maybe that's what has to happen here. Maybe we have to vote all of these people out and get people in that actually pass fucking laws that help us. And if we lose the election, then we need to go out and protest and start lawsuits. And we have to use every tool we have in the fucking, you know, every tool we have in the shed, right? And so there's some people on the left that don't believe in electoral politics, right? Which is, believe it or not, a lot of these people that are out there protesting, right? You know, a lot of those people don't actually believe in representative democracy. They don't believe that voting does anything. They think the system is rigged anyway. And, you know, a lot of them are like anarchists, so they don't even believe in like that we should have government, shit like that, whatever, right? But they still want the same outcomes as people like me, who are like, you know, people like me who want progressive policies. Right. They still want the same outcomes, but they're unwilling to participate in a system that they feel is unjust. And, you know, there's a lot that maybe you could, you know, there's a lot that you could say supports their position, right? And in particular, when our checks and balances no longer work, it gets kind of hard to argue with them, right? Because they say, well, hey, I went out and voted, shit didn't change. So why should I waste my time trying to get out and vote some more if the opposition is just going to fucking cheat? And it's like, yeah, I could see that. You know, but then these people think that they can just make these changes themselves by not, you know, by just completely ignoring the system. And it's like, well, no, you can't. Okay. At some point, you're going to have to get, you know, you're going to have to work with the system because you're not going to be able to change it. You know, it's not going to happen. The government's not going to collapse, right? No matter how many times you protest. I hate to break it to you guys. If there's any people out there that are like, you know, believe that you can facilitate lasting change through direct action alone. I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to happen, right? It doesn't matter how many, you can protest now until the end of time. It's not going to change, you know, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to, you know, until you get some laws passed, until you elect some people that work to get policy changed and get laws passed and prevent it from getting reversed, right? Until you do that, you're not going to see any significant change. You know what you'll see? You'll see small, little changes just to placate you. You know, they'll talk about, oh, okay, city X, Y, and Z is reforming their police, you know, something like that, right? Maybe Cincinnati or something. Oh, they're disbanding their police department and they're bringing it, you know, they're going to form something else, right? Yeah, that's great. Within a couple of years, it's going to be right back to where it was. That's what these guys don't understand, right? That's what these people don't understand. It's like, if there isn't a law saying you can't do something, people are going to do it, right? So How do you, especially when it comes to the government, how do you hold the government accountable? How do you prevent the government from doing something you don't want it to do? Right. You pass a regulation. That's what regulations are, okay? Police have to wear body cameras at all times, and they have to be turned on, and the video has to go up to a server and be available within 24 hours of an incident, right? That's a regulation, okay? If you don't pass a law, right, that says that has to happen, or if you don't get a mayor that institutes that policy, right, with punishments that have teeth for people that, for police departments that don't obey that, then it's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter how fucking much you protest. You could be out there, something in Portland, they've been protesting for like 98 days straight or something ridiculous like that. They could be out there for another 98 days. If they don't actually get some people in there to institute these changes, then these changes are not going to happen. And they'll just be out there again forever. So, voting is another tool, right? Just like protesting. Protesting is a tool. Yes, it's something in the shit. Direct action is a tool, right? And it's a good tool, and you should do it. Disrupting things, right? Stuff like that. Holding up traffic, that's actually a tool. That's a protesting tactic, right? What protesting does, what it does is that it gets your message out into the media. It gets people talking about your message. That's what it does, all right? It doesn't actually facilitate the changes you want. Nobody is gonna, but you know what it does? There'll be a short-term, small, little changes to try to placate you. So the mayor of Seattle will go, okay, well, we'll just let them take over these 6 city blocks and start their, autonomous zone. And then that'll and why is she doing that? Why did that happen? To placate the protesters. That's why. Right. So that their protest, will eventually burn itself out and run out of steam. That's what it was. And that's exactly what fucking happened. Right. That's exactly what happened. Okay. Because no actual lasting policy came from that. Right. It never fucking does. It never does. What it should, this is why you should go to these protests with this aim in mind. That you're trying to get yourself on the news. You're trying to get people talking about, what you're trying to change. So when it comes to Black Lives Matter, you go to these protests. You should be protesting, and when you're out there holding signs, you should be holding signs and talking about people like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and, the 17 other fucking people who were murdered this last month or whatever. Right. Because you want to get it in the news, because that's what the whole reason you're there protesting. The media comes to cover your protest, and they go, what are you guys out here for? We're out here for this. Right. That's what it's there for. It gets people talking. Okay. That's what it's for. And then when you get people talking, then people start demanding change, and then they hold their politicians to that. And they vote for a politician based on that change. And that's how you actually get systematic, institutional change. Okay? That's how it happens. Right? I mean, the other alternative is to rise up with a bunch of guns and take over. Good luck with that shit. That's not happening. And I wouldn't support that anyway. You encounter people like that on Reddit. When you try to, people that, I remember I asked a guy, he said that he didn't believe in representational democracy, and I asked him, I'm like, okay, well, what should we do? What's your solution? And he goes, this is what the guy told me on Reddit. Read Marx, buy guns. Right? So it's like, alright, so he wants a fucking revolution. And I said back to him, okay, well, what process would you have to choose a head of state? Right? How would you go about that? If you don't believe in popular elections, what's your process for choosing a head of state? And of course, the guy wouldn't talk to me after that. Right? Probably because he doesn't really have an answer. See? Because most people, revolutionaries, haven't actually thought past the revolution part. Right? And this is on the left and the right. Most people who, who get their panties wet at the thought of going out and murdering a lot of people who disagree with them politically haven't actually thought about what life is going to be like after their made-up masturbatory revolution, which, you know, is never going to happen, is concluded. Right? They've never actually thought that far. So, anyway, yeah, getting back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Sorry, off on a little bit of a tangent there, folks. Sorry about that. We are pretty much fucked right now. There really isn't anything that the Democrats are going to be able to do to stop Mitch McConnell from holding a vote and Trump ramming through a nominee from now until December. It's not possible. I know that there's videos and shit of people out there saying, you know, they could do this, they could do that. Yeah, maybe they could. And, you know, I can tell you right now they're not going to. They're not going to, because the Democrats are the junior party. The Democrats are the junior party, and they're weak. And they're not willing to take those extra trolling steps that the Republicans do. Right? Is it because they have integrity? Is it because they're weak on purpose? And it's like they're all in it together? I don't know. It doesn't really matter at this point. What matters is that Trump's going to get another nomination pushed through to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is now going to be basically conservative for a generation, right? What does that mean for us? That means you can basically look forward to all of the conservative wet dream policies getting, you know, enacted through the Supreme Court. First and foremost, it means that if there are any election shenanigans this election, and it goes to the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of Trump. So, that's the first thing, right? Now, there is a chance that by that point, right, maybe, if, you know, maybe they can hold off this maybe they can, like, the Democrats, if they actually had some nuts, might be able to stop a nomination before that happens. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. I really think that Trump and Mitch McConnell are just going to, like, ram it through. And then this really opens up a door for, you know, Trump contesting the election and then the Supreme Court ruling in his favor. Because now there's a majority, you know, a solid majority, conservative majority, right? Now, please remember, before she died, there already was a conservative majority. But now it's, you know, so that was already a danger of happening, right? But now it's solid conservative. So now it's basically pretty much any election for the next 30 years, right, is going to be, you know, any kind of thing like that for the next 30 years is going to be decided in the conservatives' favor. So keep that in mind. We pretty much just screwed ourselves. You know, we basically screwed ourselves out of a check and balance. One of the checks and balances is gone now for the government, right? In particular, when it comes to, you know, checks on presidential power, it's over, right? So keep that in mind, right? Now, does it mean that things like abortion may be ruled unconstitutional? I don't know, okay? Maybe, maybe not, all right? I personally really don't think the Republicans want to ban abortion on a national level. I think if they did, they know that there's going to be a backlash, and it would be very bad for them. And that's why I don't think that. Now, we could definitely see a thing where there's a ruling that says states are allowed to ban it. I could see that happening, right? And there's a lot of states out there that immediately have these sort of like laws in place already that the minute that ruling comes down, abortion gets banned in their state. You know, Kentucky I think, has that. Texas has that. So you could see that happening. You could definitely see abortion becoming a state by state kind of thing, the same way that legalized marijuana is, right? Which would not be good. It would not be good because it's important for us to have cohesion as a nation, right? That's an important thing. You know, you shouldn't have to go to prison in one state for shit that's perfectly legal in another state. You know, and it shouldn't be like, because what's going to happen? Like, say you live in Alabama and abortion is illegal there, right? Then you decide to go across the border into, you know, Florida or Louisiana or whatever, and abortion is legal, and you get an abortion. Does that mean that if you go back to Alabama, they throw you in jail because you had an abortion? You know? How does that make any sense? I mean, technically, you know, the law could be written in such a way that if you were to do that, that's what happens. So then what'll happen? You know? Women, like, basically going to fucking prison for shit that one state over is 100% legal. How is that? How should that be allowed? It shouldn't be. You know, the same way, like, I would say that for anything. I would say that for prostitution. You know, you shouldn't go to prison if you engage in prostitution in one state, where if you just happen to live 5 miles that way, it's perfectly legal. You know, drug use, same thing. You shouldn't have to, like, go to prison for smoking weed in California, but if you go 50 miles over into Nevada, you get 20 years. That's bullshit. It shouldn't be like that. But it is. It already is like that with a lot of things, and it's, like, ridiculous. And, you know, we're all part of the same country. We're all Americans, right? But we live in these divided little, you know, I guess that's why they call them states. Right? It shouldn't be like that. Okay? I mean, you don't see that in other fucking countries on Earth, right? You know, if you're in one part of fucking Liechtenstein and you smoke a joint and then you go to another part of it, you go to jail. You don't see shit like that there, you know, because they're fucking actual modern countries that have politicians that give a shit and, like, policy that's actually thought out to help people not fuck them up, unlike our country. Right? Anyway, so that's fucking ridiculous. But anyway, so there's a guy that I watch, right, named Bew of the Fifth Column. If you guys have never seen this dude on YouTube, he's actually pretty awesome. In particular, 1911 Greater Than All, you should watch this guy. Alright? Because he seems to be someone that would be right up your alley. And, you know, he definitely seems to be, you know, someone on the liberal side of things. Right? But he is very, very thoughtful, and, you know, this guy lives in Florida. And it looks like that, you know, most of the people in his life are most likely conservatives. And what he's very, very good at is not only addressing conservatives and what they believe, you know, what they, I guess, seeing things from their point of view, right? He's very good at that, and he's also very good at, you know, communicating to them why the shit that they believe in is wrong, even from their own supposed point of view, right? So, if you are one of my conservative viewers, I recommend checking him out, Bew of the Fifth Column. And he had a video about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, where he was talking about this, right? And one thing he said, you know, because I think we're talking about abortion, right? One thing that he said in his video was that 160 million Americans are now concerned about their rights being taken away because Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died, right? And it shouldn't be that one person, I'm paraphrasing him now, it shouldn't be that one person is the check in our checks and balances, right? And he's got a good point, because think about what's going on here, right? the balance of the court is going to be tipped, right? And things that couldn't get passed before are going to get passed. And there's a wish list on the right wing of lots of different things that they want. And a lot of what they want is going to involve taking away the rights from somebody else. In this case, reproductive rights. But these, I would say, this is not the only danger. I think that is just the most high-profile public danger. That's the thing that everybody thinks about immediately, reproductive rights. But there's a lot more, in particular when it comes to things like voting rights, environmental policy, right? There's a lot of shit that the Republicans have on a wish list, regulations, right? Civil rights. All of these things come up before the Supreme Court constantly, all the time. And now we're going to get, now the people in charge of it are people like Brett Kavanaugh. All right. These are the guys, Brett Kavanaugh, fucking Clarence Thomas. These are the guys now who are making the decisions about the laws that the rest of us have to fucking obey. Okay. And, that point is a good point, right? Now, why exactly is that a worry? Why are people worried? Why are 160 million people worried about, their rights now, right? Because we can no longer trust our politicians to select someone that has our best interest at heart. That's why, okay? An objective, let's just take abortion. Let's take that, because this is the high profile, issue that everybody immediately comes to everybody's mind when they think about the Supreme Court. It's like, okay, abortion's going to get, knocked out, right? So, an objective view of abortion shows that when you have abortion rights, it benefits everybody more, right, than if you outlaw it. Okay? Now, why? Because when it was outlawed, that didn't stop women from getting them, number one. Okay? That just meant that it gets driven underground. The same kind of like how drug use is, driven underground, right? Same kind of thing. Kind of like how prostitution is driven underground, And I'll even throw a bone to my conservative viewers. Even how, like, say, if we were to outlaw firearms, the sale of firearms would be driven underground. Okay, I'm throwing a bone to you guys. So, what ended up happening, for generations when abortion was illegal, is that women would get them anyway. And all that did was drive it into these, sort of back alley places. They call, back alley abortions, where they would go to doctors who did not have to follow any regulations, and more often than not, the woman would end up with severe problems afterwards. Sometimes women would die because the abortion was not handled the right way, because basic medical procedures were not followed. Things like cleanliness, sterilizing your instruments, shit like that, because it was being done in someone's fucking basement somewhere and not in a hospital, right? Shit like that would happen constantly, right? Why do you think, the issue of abortion went up to the Supreme Court anyway? Okay. Why do you think there was such a fight over it in the first place? It's because hundreds of thousands of women every year were getting injured and dying and getting permanent permanent injuries from an underground abortion, industry, basically. Outlawing it didn't stop it. Alright? So now that it's legal, a woman can go to a hospital and not have to take her fucking life into her hands, right, when she decides not to have a child, which is her right. Okay. I mean, just, you know, I'm just putting aside the notion of rights to begin with. I'm putting that completely aside because some people don't believe that. Some people say, well, what about the fetus's right to live? Yeah, whatever. Okay. Let's just ignore that and let's just look at what was actually fucking happening. All right. So, you know, because it didn't stop. So now you can go and you can get one and it's free, you know, from the stress of taking your life in your hands, right? You don't have to worry about fucking like bleeding out in some fucking like, you know, back room someplace. Doctors that give it out don't have to worry about going to prison, right? That's another thing that people forget. Doctors would go to prison for shit that's legal now, you know. And altogether, it's better, and it's just better in general. You know, you're young, let's say you're a young girl, you're 16, some shit like that. You know, you make a mistake, you know, the condom breaks, the birth control doesn't work. That actually can happen, believe it or not. You know, it says birth control pills, 97% effective. Yeah, well, that's not 100%. All right. And, you know, so now you're stuck with a child, right? And it can basically change your entire life. And do you take anybody, do you blame any young girl who doesn't want to, like, change the direction of her entire life for something that she doesn't want? A child she doesn't want? Do you blame that? I don't blame her for that. You know? Young kid, you're a teenager, you're going to go to college. You're gonna, like, you know, be a doctor or wherever the fuck it is you want to be, right? Some shit like that. Now you can't because you got to stay home, take care of a kid, right? I mean, and I'm not even talking about shit like the stigma of, like, you know, being an unwed mother, or like how it would just like break up and ruin families for generations. I'm not even touching on any of that shit. Okay. It's basically anybody with an objective view of how it looks would say that it's better to have it be legal. The people that object to it are objecting on religious grounds. Those are the people, that's, you know, that's the majority. You know, I'm not going to say everybody, but that's the majority of people who object to abortion. They're the people who are objecting on religious grounds because they want the poor little baby fetuses and shit to be alive. Whatever, right? And, you know, I personally think that's bullshit because you should not be encoding the beliefs of somebody's religion into law like that. Right? You shouldn't, you know, because it's your religion and you can believe what you want. And, you know, if your religion says abortion's bad, then there's nothing keeping you from yourself from not getting an abortion. That's the way I see it. Right? And that just basically says to me that they want to impose their religion on everybody else. Right? They want to impose their beliefs, saying that no, because I believe that zygotes have souls, I'm going to prevent you from getting a perfectly valid medical procedure. And I'm going to force your life into a path that you don't want it to go into because of my religion. I think that's bullshit, right? So anyway, that's my contention, you know, that it's an objective viewing of abortion is that it should be legal. That's what I see, right? A lot of conservatives don't see it that way, right? And now we had one woman kind of holding back the tide to prevent that. You know, one person was preventing laws like this that, you know, laws that codify religious belief, you know, from being a reality. And now she's gone. and now we're basically, that's in the targeting sites now. And you would say, getting back to my original point, we should be able to trust that anyone that's appointed to that court, right, would be able to look at an issue like abortion objectively. We should be able to trust, in the perfect world, right, the way that the system is described on paper, right, the way it's supposed to work, is that any person that is, nominated to that court should be looking at subjects like these, issues like these, from an objective standpoint, and weighing the pros and cons of that particular case and none other, and saying, okay, this is how the Constitution says, or this is what the right answer should be, and we can't trust that. We can't trust any person that, especially this president, nominates to that court to actually be objective like that, right? And the reason why we can't trust them is because of Republicans, right? Let's not bullshit ourselves, folks. And let's not sugarcoat it anymore, or pussyfoot around the bush, or whatever the fuck idiom you want to use, okay? The reason why we can't trust the next person that Trump is, that especially this Republican Trump, Donald Trump, is going to, appoint to that court to be objective, is because of Republicans. Because Republicans have an agenda, and the Republican agenda is very, very much anti-rights for women and minorities and poor people, right? And we know that they've had laws like this in their sights for decades. So, hey, I see some people are watching. Chrissy Mania and 1911 Greater Than All. What's up, guys? So, I will get to your comments at the end of the stream. Thanks for watching, and I'll take, as usual, the last half hour or so of the stream and read through your comments. So, if you guys have anything you want me to talk about or whatever, go ahead and put it in the comments, and I promise I will read it. Anyway, so that's why people are, scared on the right, on the left here. People on the right are fucking ecstatic, okay? They're fantastic. They're like jumping up and down for joy. And you're seeing people in the comment sections and shit saying, I'm glad she's gone, shit like that. I didn't take any screen caps of these, right, because it's a little fucked up, but maybe for the next stream, maybe I'll take some screen caps of conservatives and Republicans and things, celebrating the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Maybe I'll put some of that out there, just to kind of, illustrate where our country is and what's wrong with it, right? So, anyway, that's why people are scared. And they're scared because the system doesn't work for them anymore. And the reason why it doesn't work for them is Republicans. So, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna fucking sugarcoat that shit any longer, right? Sorry, this is what I think. And, I think I'm pretty fucking correct here. Anyway, so yeah, let's just remember, let's put the blame where it belongs, The reason why our government is fucked up, the reason why we're not getting the things we need from them, why we've gotten one measly $1,200 stimulus when fucking 10 million people are out of work, right? And 60 million people lost their jobs, I'm sorry, not lost their jobs. 60 million people have filed for unemployment. Okay, not all at once, right? There's been something like 60 million people who have filed for unemployment every week, right? But right now it's something like 10 million are out of work, So over the course of the last 6 months, that's how many people have been in and out of work, which is ridiculous. the reason why we don't have these things, why we don't have a national testing strategy for, the pandemic, right? The reason why we don't have a national health care plan, right? All of these things. The reason why we don't have renewable energy subsidies. The same way that we have energy subsidies for nuclear and fossil fuels. Right? All of these things. It's because Republicans. That's why. Republicans are the ones standing in the way of all of this stuff. All of these things that other Western democracies have elsewhere in the world, where people are, as a result, right, as a result of these policies elsewhere in the world, people live longer than us, they make more money than we do, they're more educated than we are, their environment is cleaner than ours, and they're generally happier than we are. And there's less civil unrest in those countries, right? Things like, say, the Netherlands, right? France, England, I mean, there's still civil unrest, right? There's still problems. I'm not going to lie and say there isn't, okay? But it's less. They don't have the same problems we do. Their problems are like problems we wish we had. In the Netherlands, there is a shortage of manual labor. Can you believe that shit? Right? So if you're like a manual laborer, you pick up garbage, for instance, or something like that, or work in the fields picking fruit, that kind of thing. If that's what you do in the Netherlands, you get paid more, right? Because there's a shortage of people out there because too many people have advanced degrees in the Netherlands. Can you fucking believe that? That's like saying I have too much money. Okay? Seriously, that's like saying my dick is too big. Oh, I got this problem. My penis is too fucking large. Women can't stand it. You know what I mean? That's like, I got so much money. Oh, I have to burn it and shit at night because I can't fit it all inside of my safe. That's like saying that, okay? I wish we had those problems. I wish we had, too many people with advanced degrees in this country to where the garbage men were fucking in demand. All right? I mean, fuck. How did they get that way? How do we get those problems? How do we get, the fucking I have too much money problems? Right? Right? You get it through instituting policies that people actually want. Policies that actually help people. Right? Policies that Republicans will not allow to pass because they think that it's turning our fucking, country into some kind of weird socialist hellhole. And they don't understand is the country already is turning into a hellhole, right? Without the socialist policies. It's turning it into a hellhole because of their fucking policies, because of conservative policies. All right? Seriously. There's this meme going around from the Trump people and all this shit that you're starting to see in Donald Trump's ads, stuff like that. When they're saying okay, look at this civil unrest, look at these countries, these cities burning down. This is what it'll look like in Joe Biden's America. You see this and you see these in the ads. If you let Joe Biden become president, this is what America's going to turn into. And then they show riots and all this other shit. And they forget to mention that this is what's already happening. And Donald Trump is the president. So it's well, if Joe Biden's the president, we already have this shit. Right? Who was in charge when this shit actually happened? Number one. So it's no, Joe Biden is not going to cause all of this fucking crap because it's already happening. And then you start thinking about it, and you're well, what's Donald Trump doing about it? See, this is why that messaging is not working. Okay, this is why as of today, Joe Biden is still 6.5 points ahead nationally, and is ahead in every single swing state. All right, because it's there's only so much that you can bullshit people before they fucking, start smelling it and wake up and fucking smell the diapers. All right, like there's only I mean, it's like get the fuck out of here. Anyway, so there was some other shit I wanted to talk about here before we move on. How long have we been streaming? We've been streaming for an hour already? Seriously? God damn, time flies, man. Okay. Well, before all of our time is eaten up with me going off about a bunch of stupid shit, all right, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that came up in the news here. First off, Bill Barr has suggested arresting the Seattle mayor for sedition. If you guys have seen that, here's one. Let me open my left monitor. Barr asked prosecutors to explore charging Seattle mayor over protest zone. So, let me just read a little bit of this article to you guys here. This is The Hill. Attorney General William Barr asked Justice Department prosecutors to explore charging Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin over a protest zone in the city. And Barr asked prosecutors in the department's Civil Rights Division to explore charging Durkin during a call with prosecutors last week. And he wants to basically, long story short, he wants to charge her with sedition. Okay. And then also, he reportedly encouraged federal prosecutors to charge protesters themselves with sedition. Protesters. So, this is, because we were just talking a minute ago about, like, okay, this is what's happening in Trump's America, right? Protests, civil unrest, all that shit. What's he doing about it, right? Well, this is what the Trump people want to do about it. They don't want to actually address the things that people are protesting over, the things that people are mad about. Instead, they want to charge them with sedition, right? So let's look up what the word sedition means. Let's see, dictionary. Conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. Okay. And yes, that actually is a crime in the United States. You are not allowed to advocate for the overthrow or destruction in a violent way of the United States. Right. People do it anyway every single day and nothing happens to them because it's kind of a bullshit charge because we have a thing called freedom of speech in this country. And according to the First Amendment, you are allowed to basically say whatever the hell you want. But there are limits. You're not allowed to call for the violent overthrow of the United States, right? So, first off, this thing where Barr is saying that he wants to arrest the Seattle mayor, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because in order to prove sedition, it's basically, sedition is a bullshit charge that they throw up in order to get rid of political, opposition in other countries, right? So when, Vladimir Putin chases his opposition, the leader of his opposition out of the country and threatens to arrest him, right? He's threatening to arrest him for sedition. Okay. That's what sedition is, right? And we haven't really had anybody arrested in this country for sedition since the Civil War. Okay? Years, so this is like going on 100 years. People haven't been busted for sedition. I think there might have been a couple of cases during World War I where some newspaper editors or something were arrested for sedition. Right. If I remember right. But, I mean, think about just all of the people that you see out there talking about overthrowing the United States. All right. And nobody ever arrests these people. Nobody ever does anything to them. Right. Because it's a waste of time. Right. It's a waste of time because they know that they would not be able to choose, because all the person has to say when they get into the court is say, well, I didn't mean violently. Right. And then if they can, they would have to produce evidence that they actually advocated for the violent overthrow of the United States. Right. Which the mayor of Seattle did not. So this is obvious bullshit. So it's not going to happen, number one. But that doesn't mean it's not dangerous. That doesn't mean that it couldn't just be an excuse for you know, especially when it comes to somebody like Bill Barr, who is kind of going full fascist now, that, you know, especially when your political party owns the courts like the Republicans do now, right? The Republicans have basically spent the last 3 years making federal appointments to the, you know, to the judges to the courts, basically ramming through conservative judges. You know, I think I did a video on that. There was one guy who never even tried a case before, right? Ever. He's now a judge for the rest of his life. Shit like that. So now it's like, you know, especially, so now you basically have an entire court system that is at their beck and call and will make, you know, will rule the way they want pretty much for whatever. So all they got to do is make a couple of phone calls and it's like, oh, we want this guy thrown in jail, you know, for the rest of his life for sedition. And guess what? He gets thrown in jail. So keep that in mind. See, this is all steps in the slow fascist takeover of the United States. All right. You have one political party that runs everything. Right. They have the presidency. They have the courts. Right. They have half of the Congress. Okay. They're basically, you know, unaccountable towards anyone. Right. Pretty much everything we've tried to do in order to hold Trump accountable has fallen through. Right. Tried to impeach him, didn't work. Right. We, you know, try to hold him accountable through, you know, what do you call those guys? The inspector generals. Trump has basically fired all of the inspector generals and replaced them with his own people. So, the inspector generals are the people responsible in the executive branch for making sure that policy is enacted according to the law. Right. Pretty much anybody now in the executive branch who could have any type of power to hold any of those people accountable has been 86'd and replaced with a crony, you know, who is just going to do Trump's bidding. Right. Conceivably, the inspector generals are supposed to be autonomous from the president. Right. So let's say now, you know, the president, like, let's say they have a policy where they're going to, you know, distribute, let's say, money in order to help people vote, for example. Right. Say they have some kind of, like, program. The inspector general is supposed to then turn around and make sure that program is being facilitated according to the law, according to the way the law is written. Right. And now it's like he basically kicked all those people out, so they'll just do whatever the fuck he wants. So Donald Trump wants to punish sanctuary cities because they didn't vote for him, you know, by withholding funds that he's not supposed to have control over. Nothing we can do to stop him now, because the person in charge of making sure that's not supposed to happen is now at Trump's beck and call. That's another step towards fascism, is that you replace all of the career professionals in the government with sycophants and you know, bootlickers and people who are beholden to you. Right. So that's gone. Right. And now he's working on the police. He's working on the police, getting the police unions and things on his side. So that when shit hits the fan, they're going to take his side. And they already are. They already are. You know. So basically it's like we're starting to see, you know, the fascist takeover of the United States right now. It's happening before our very eyes. And, you know, even if Donald Trump gets unelected, it's still going to continue. You know, it'll just be whatever the next Republican president is, right? And the next Republican president with fascist predilections most likely will be more competent than Donald Trump is. Let's say Ted Cruz gets elected next time, is the next Republican president. Let's say Joe Biden wins now, and for 8 years we try to put things back together the way they were, right? And then Ted Cruz becomes president. You know, he runs again, because he almost made it last time. right? Ted Cruz is a slime ball and a snake in the grass. He's also miles and miles above Donald Trump when it comes to competency, and much more able and capable of getting his agenda passed than Donald Trump is. So you notice a lot of Donald Trump's agenda hasn't actually been enacted. They haven't actually built a wall. Right? They haven't actually, like, gotten rid of Obamacare. They haven't actually done a lot of the shit Donald Trump wants to do. You know, some of the other crap that he wanted to do is most definitely going through. Closed all the borders. That's happened. Right? Immigration is at a standstill. That's happened. Deporting people left and right. Getting rid of, like, what do they call them? The dreamers, deferred action. That's gone, completely gone. So there's people that have came here when they were like small children that have lived in the United States their entire lives and built lives here, and instead of like helping them become full-fledged citizens in the country they call home, they're now being deported to countries that they have no connections to. That happened, right? But a lot of his other agenda hasn't really been enacted, and you just think, well, if there was just somebody that knew what they were doing that wasn't a fuck up, if you got a Republican in there like Ted Cruz that knew how to manipulate the system, right? Knew how to like not make an ass of himself every fucking day, right? Knew how to actually talk to the news instead of like making the media an enemy, but instead making them sympathetic to his cause, right? A lot more shit would get enacted, and you know what? The groundwork is there now for somebody like Ted Cruz, but more evil, to actually go full fascist. Right? It's there. It's like it got slowly over the course of many years since George W. Bush came in and started taking away people's rights, and it just sort of like came on slowly and slowly and slowly, and now it's just accelerated like crazy. And so I don't know, folks. I really think, I think we really are in danger of that happening, So, and this is just, Bill Barr saying that he wants to, like, charge protesters with sedition. That's just part of it. You have a right to protest in this country. See, he didn't say rioters and looters and all that shit, okay? Because I know that's what somebody here in the comments are going to say. So one of you guys in the comments is going to say, this is, police, rioters and looters and shit should get thrown in jail. Yeah, but if you throw rioters and looters in jail, then you should throw them in jail for rioting and looting, not for sedition. Okay? Sedition is a political crime, right? And rioting and looting is not a political crime, right? Rioting and looting is rioting and looting. Sedition is basically you're throwing someone in jail for their politics. That's what that is. You have a right in this country to protest. All right, you have a right to gather peacefully and protest. Okay. Threatening someone with sedition because they're protesting, right, is basically like, that's why it's bullshit. That's why it's a bullshit charge. That's why, like, they're not gonna fucking do it, but just the fact, it's the idea that he wants to fucking do it. That's the problem. See, that's what you guys don't get. Because that's another thing I'm seeing from people, like, oh yeah, well, it's not gonna happen, so who cares? Just the idea that they want to do it, kind of like means that Bill Barr should not be in the position of power that he's in right now. Okay? So, anyway, I thought that was pretty fucking disturbing. Another thing I wanted to talk about here is Donald Trump's bullshit vaccine plan, which is complete load of fucking shit. So I don't know if you guys heard this, but Trump's head of the CDC, the head of the CDC the other day came out and said, we most likely will not have a vaccine available for the general public until Q3 of 2021. Right. Which makes sense. Okay, that's kind of where we all thought it was going to be anyway. Donald Trump doesn't like that because he is trying to bullshit people into thinking that we are going to have a vaccine before the election, which we will not. It's impossible. We're not going to have a vaccine before the election. So, the other day, he got up in front of a bunch of cameras and laid out his vaccine plan, right? Which I don't have a link to it, but I will put a link in the thing at the bottom after this is over with, so that you can see basically, and it was basically just, 20 minutes of him bullshitting, saying that we're going to have all this stuff, which we're not going to have, and we're going to have a vaccine by February, and then he, turned around and said March, and then he turned around and said April, right? So he's basically saying we're going to have a dose for every person in the country by April of a vaccine that has not been approved yet. Right? And it was just basically this desperate, ridiculous fucking thing that, because the head of the CDC said some shit that he didn't like, he had to rush through with this dumbass plan that has no basis in fucking reality. It was laughable. Absolutely laughable, and I wish I would have grabbed the link. I'll put it down now. But there was one thing I wanted to comment on this, right? I wanted to comment on this because there is a concerted effort out there to create a vaccine. It's called Covix, C-O-V-X. That's the name of the, vaccination program headed by the WHO in order to, get a vaccine out there as soon as humanly possible. And it's being held by 170 different countries are participating in this effort to create a vaccine. Doctors, they're running trials concurrently. Normally they would have to do trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. They're doing those together at the same time because they want to get it out there as soon as they can. Doctors all over the world are working on it, and even countries that cannot contribute materially to it, people are volunteering. So places in Africa and shit like that in the Far East, people are volunteering to have this vaccine to do human trials for it, stuff like that, right? And we are not participating in that because Donald Trump has begun the process of withdrawing the United States from the WHO. So the COVAX effort, we're not part of that. Okay. Instead, we are relying on pharmaceutical companies to create our vaccine. Okay. Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, AstraZeneca, right? These are the guys that are making the vaccine on our side. Now, what is wrong with this picture? Okay. What is wrong with this picture? I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to push through a vaccine which isn't properly tested and has side effects. And they're going to push it through because Donald Trump is going to tell them to push it through, to get it out there, right, by the election, which I don't think it's going to happen by the election. But I think he's going to try to push it by the election. And if they release it by then, it's going to be dangerous. See, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Vaccines generally are safe. Okay, so you have things like the flu vaccine that you take every year. That's safe. It's fine. Okay. Like your polio vaccine, that's fine. Okay, stuff like that. That has had, the reason why those vaccines are good and fine and all that, and I trust them, is because they've had years and years of testing and usage, and we know they work, okay? Some shit that's been pushed out over the course of 6 months, we have no idea if the shit works, okay? And, vaccines actually can have side effects, right? There was a video by a woman named Rebecca Watson, who's a skeptic. She used to go by the name Skeptic, I think. Skeptic is what it was. She has a really good video on this, talking about a case in the 1970s when, a vaccine was pushed out that actually did a lot of damage to some people, paralyzed some people, right? And yeah, those are the dangers, right? And I can pretty much guarantee you, if they try to push out a vaccine before it's ready, shit like that's going to happen, right? First off, we have no idea of knowing if it'll work. See, because it has to, the way a vaccine works is that it creates a sufficient immune response to it so that you have antibodies. So when you encounter the disease again, your antibodies are already there, right? And you don't get sick because they kill the virus, essentially, right? Or you get sick and it's way, way less because you already got antibodies, right? So you end up not going to the hospital and shit like that. That's how basically vaccines work, okay? It's preempting the immune response. Well, a vaccine that's not tested, we don't know if it actually creates that sufficient antibodies to be effective. So there may be cases where you end up taking the vaccine and you get sick anyway, right? And one of the points that she brings up is that that's just going to make people not trust vaccines even more. So we already have an anti-vaxxer movement in this country, which is part of the reason why shit like the measles is becoming a fucking problem again. Because these morons won't vaccinate their fucking kids, right? So now, shit that, like the measles are coming back, which we haven't had, stuff that we haven't had problems with in a goddamn generation. Because of these fucking idiots. And now, we're gonna have this COVID-19 vaccine, which is, gonna cause problems because it was rushed, and it's just gonna throw fuel on the fire for the goddamn anti-vaxxers. It's ridiculous. So I won't spend too much time on this, because I talked about it last time, but suffice to say, if they actually do announce a vaccine, I'm not taking it until it gets proven safe. And if that means I gotta wait another 6 months until, it's proven safe, then I'll wait another 6 months. I'll fucking wear a mask for 6 months. I don't care if I'm the only person in the goddamn country wearing a mask. I'll do it. Okay? Because I don't trust Donald Trump. And I don't trust his fucking, I don't trust a vaccine that gets shat out by a for-profit pharmaceutical company in 6 months. And if you trust it, you're a fucking idiot. So, but be my guest. Go ahead and take it. If you want to go ahead and, if you trust him and you want to be a goddamn guinea pig for fucking Johnson & Johnson, be my guest. I'm not doing it. So, I am going to wait until this shit is proven safe before I risk my fucking health. Thank you very much. So anyway, that was bullshit. There was some other crap I wanted to talk about here. Let me see. Let me go over my notes. Blah, 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 blah. There was one thing. Okay. Before we end it here, what time we got? 1:28. I want to talk about one more thing, and then we will look at some of the comments. Okay. So, I've been looking at a lot of polls recently because, the election. I'm kind of every election I kind of turn into a poll junkie. And even though this election I'm purposely not allowing myself to have any emotional attachment to the outcome of this election, because I understand there's a very good chance that it won't go the way I want, and I got to be ready for that. I'm not gonna tie my fucking life to Joe Biden winning this election. Right? Because he could lose. Let's keep that in mind, everybody. He can fucking lose. Even though he's up, and he's been up this whole time, and in any, sane world he'd be a shoo-in, he can still lose. But that kind of got me looking at some of the other shit that these polls look at. Because they don't actually only poll for the candidates. They poll for lots of different things, right? And there was this Pew Research one, right, that said, excuse me. It was a Pew Research poll from a few weeks ago, right? And one of the things they were talking about was how people feel about different, threats to the country and problems we have to worry about, stuff like that, right? And they said one of them was 27% of Republicans think climate change is a threat, right? And that kind of got to me, and that's kind of ridiculous, seeing now how we have massive wildfires and hurricanes at the same time, right? One side of the country is burning down, the other side of the country is getting too much water and is starting to flood, and who even knows what's going to happen to the middle of the country? I don't know, maybe tornadoes or some shit, right? But in this same poll, and I'll put a link to the thing down in the bottom, but let me show you the poll, right? It was this one, the same poll from the Pew Research Center from July 30th, right? But I'll come back to that. One of the things that jumped out to me was that the same study as that said that a growing number of Republicans think the United States is more respected internationally under Donald Trump than it was under Barack Obama, which is laughable. Laughable in its naivety, but demonstrably untrue. That is absolutely fucking laughable. And this is one thing also I want to bring up to my conservative and Republican viewers here. Please don't believe that. If you actually think that the world respects the United States more because of Donald Trump, I got 3 bridges, 3 bridges and a city dump to sell you, because, yeah, it's not just the exact opposite. Like, you couldn't have something more contrary to fucking reality. If you believed that, Santa Claus came down and, with the Easter Bunny and, butt fucked your mom and that's where babies come from, you couldn't be more wrong than this, right? And you got to think about, why. Okay, why is it that, actually, hang on, I have to get a marker. Hang on, I need a marker. I have one right over here. At least I used to. Let's see, where the hell is my marker? Okay, there we go. Alright. Very nice, my friend. We are back. Okay. Sorry, folks. Large black areas I have to color in here. So, yeah. Just think about, right. Now, why do I say that? Why do I say that's laughable, right? And it's not because of any anti-Trump thing, right? It's just, look at what he's done to the country as far as our international standing has gone since he's taken office, okay? Think about it. So he's pulled us out of many, many, many international agreements, right? Because in areas where the United States used to be a leader, we are not anymore because of Donald Trump. So things like the Kyoto Protocols, gone. Paris Climate Agreement, pulled us out of that. Okay? So we are no longer even attempting to lead in that area, right? World Health Organization pulled us out of that in the middle of a pandemic. That was a smart move. Pulled us out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And not only did he do that, but he also got us into a trade war with China at the same time. Well, say what you want about the TPP, and I know a lot of people on the left didn't like it either. The TPP was designed to basically encircle China and prevent China from becoming the dominant economic power in the Far East. That's what the TPP was for. Okay? The TPP was basically attempting to limit China's power economically. Right. prevent China from having onesie little deals with all these different countries and like buying up Australia and like extending their trade power and dominating that region. And now that the United States has pulled out of that, basically the largest trading partner who had all of the power and teeth pull out of that agreement, it's essentially worthless. And now China's going forward and they're building bridges in Africa and highways in Africa, buying up land in Australia, and within 20 years they're going to have basically an impenetrable economic sphere in the Far East there that we could have put limits on. We could have put limits on this expansion, right? And we didn't because of Donald Trump. Keep that in mind, folks. Okay. We also pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, right? We pulled out of a couple of treaties regarding, nuclear weapons with Russia. I don't have those written down in front of me, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Okay. We've played footsie with North Korea, right? And Turkey and Iran, we've basically, and Russia, right? We've all of these basically we've pretty much reversed, decades of relationships, building leadership relationships around the world. All of that gone because of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump wants to put his personal mark on things, right? And because of that, we've weakened the position of the United States is far, far weaker than it has been when he came in, right? Expect the value of our money to go down very soon, probably after the election, right? It's going to happen. The value of our money is going to drop, very soon. Below Canada's, I think. Right? Just watch. Okay? That's going to happen. I guarantee it. So yeah. Just think about this, right? They're not even coming to us anymore. We're not participating when it comes to things. Things like this COVAX thing for a vaccine. We should be the forefront of that. Working together with our allies. Right? And developing this vaccine for the good of the world, and let's be frank, also the profit of the United States. Right? That's what we should be doing. Instead, we're doing, we're pulling out of that. We're not participating in that. Right? Because they just want the profit part. Seriously, so no, the United States is not, looked at as any kind of leader anymore in the world ever. It's not. That's gone, right? Donald Trump has done more to destroy American exceptionalism than any president in the last 100 years. All right? Seriously. And it's going to take decades for us to rebuild these relationships. I mean, shit. He threatened to fucking withdraw from NATO, for crying out loud. All right? Now imagine that you're England or Germany or France or whatever, and Donald Trump loses the election and goes and fucks off back to fucking Mar-a-Lago or wherever the fuck he wants to go. And now, you want to try to say limit the influence of Russia along with NATO. Why would NATO welcome us back into the fold? Right? Why would they? Why would they, why would any of our allies that this guy has basically shit all over in the last 4 years, why would they share intelligence with us? That's actually something that's happened. They've stopped sharing intelligence with us because they don't trust Donald Trump to not share that intelligence with Vladimir Putin. You know that? You know, that should be concerning to you out there if you're a Republican and if you care about national security, right? If you care about, you know, a stable fucking international like scene, if you care about wars breaking out, that should be like a major fucking red flag to you. The fact that our allies, that many of which we've been allies with since World War II, England, France, Germany, right? Since the end of World War II, I guess. You know, that they don't trust us anymore. They're not giving us intelligence because they're afraid that our fucking commander in chief can't keep his fucking mouth shut. You should be concerned about that. Okay? And I'm not making that shit up. This is not some just fake news crap. That, you know, this is real shit, people. This is really where we're at right now. The country is like, we've got some serious fucking problems now because of this, because of him, because of this bad leadership. All right? And we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. Joe Biden's not going to be able to fix it. It's going to take decades. It's going to take decades for these things, for these relationships to be rebuilt. It's going to take decades for our economy to recover from where it's at right now. You know, something like, what was it, 40% of all small businesses that are closed because of the pandemic are probably not going to reopen. You know, you don't just recover from that shit in a couple of years. It's going to be like the year 2030 before the economy is back to even where it was last year. All right. Hope you guys are saving your money. Whoever's out there, if you got a job now, if you're working and you're employed now, save your fucking money. You're going to need it. You're going to need your money before this is all over. Right. Wherever you live, I hope that you're able to take care of yourself, because we've already been shown that the Republicans, the conservatives, are not going to help us. Right. They can't even get a goddamn stimulus package passed. All of this shit is falling apart. It's all falling apart because of their policies. That's exactly what's happening right now. Okay. California, Oregon, Washington are burning down because of their policies. Because of their unwillingness, you know, to admit that we have a problem with global climate change. Right? Because they don't want to admit it. Because for 30 years they've been lying to themselves, saying that global climate change was false, that global warming was a Chinese hoax, and it was all Al Gore's fucking, you know, claiming the sky was falling or whatever. You know. And now that like 3 states have burned down and the entire fucking East Coast is underwater again, they still, you know, they'd rather lie to themselves than admit that they were wrong. You know, that's another thing that we're seeing here, right? They'd rather lie to themselves than admit that their worldview was incorrect. That's embarrassing fucking shit. Anyway, so yeah, it's getting depressing. Well, let's take a look at some of your comments for you guys here. Take some time to read what you guys are saying. Thank you for watching, by the way. I still see that we still do have a couple of viewers. So mainly it looks like Christy Mania and 1911 greater than all. Thank you guys for staying for the whole thing. So let's take a look at some of your comments here. Okay, Christy Mania. Every politician lies. Voting is pointless, and direct action is pointless. Well, I don't know about that. I don't believe that it's pointless, you know, voting or direct action, right? I think that they're just tools in the shed, you know, tools in the shed of basically political action, right? So you vote, you know, there's things that you want to get passed, right? You want certain policies in order to, you know, you think these are the policies that would help people in the country, right? And the thing about it is that, why do you need a government to enact any policies to begin with? Right. Well, let's say that, you want to have a clean environment. Right. Let's just say that. You can't clean the environment up all by yourself. That's not possible, right? Even if you yourself personally had a 100% carbon neutral lifestyle. You drove an electric car, you did other things to offset your carbon footprint, whatever. Right. And you yourself personally not even, completely did not contribute to, carbon pollution at all. That's not going to matter if there's another 350 million people who are not doing that. Okay. These are problems that we cannot solve by ourselves, right? You want people to have health care. Okay. Even if you become a doctor and you give away your, services completely free, right? And you travel around and help homeless people and poor people, shit like that, and give them free medical care. That's not going to change the fact that millions and millions of other people in the country don't have health care. Okay. It helps. You may be able to help a few people, and that might be great, and that might inspire some people to do some things, right? But that's not going to solve the problem. It's because these problems cannot be solved with just that kind of action, right? We're not going to, you can't, because these problems are too big for individual actions. Okay. Let's say, you want to get fish, you want to help fish populations, right? So you decide not to eat fish because the fish are fucking because there's overfishing and fish populations are way low. And if we don't do something about it, within 50 years the fish are going to be gone, right? So you decide, okay, I'll never eat fish again. Well, that doesn't help if 100 million other people continue eating fish, right? That's not going to help. Nothing you do, so you cannot stop these things. You have to enact policy. You have to get everybody else to do the same thing that you're doing, right? Well, you're not going to be able to convince 100 million people to do what you want to do by yourself. It's not possible. So what do you have to do? You have to get a law passed, right? So that's what the government's for. Okay? That's basically what it is, right? So voting is a tool in that process, right? Direct action is a tool in that process too. What's direct action in this sense? Doing something positive for the environment, going out planting trees, shit like that. That's a direct action, right? It doesn't have to be something violent, is what I'm saying. Direct actions can be positive as well. Going out helping poor people with their, health care, right? Donating to a charity. That is also included under direct action, But there's a limit to how much of that can go to as well. So let's say that you wanted to do get poor people health care, right? Well, it's something like the amount of charitable donations in the country is somewhere around the area of $450 billion, right? Now, that's not even enough to cover Medicare. Medicare has a budget of $600 billion a year. So even if we took all of the money that people donate to charity in a year and applied it just, and this is all the charities, everything, right? Save the Whales, all of it. If we took all of that and applied it to just Medicare, it's not enough money to cover Medicare. So it's if you want to have these things that help people, if you want to be able to give poor people an income and pay for their medical care, you're going to need the government for it. So the way that you influence the government is by voting. Voting for the people that will enact the policies that you want. Or, in certain states, like California has a direct referendum, process where we can vote on laws. Like you can propose a law and vote on it directly. You can do that in California. I know a lot of states. I know a lot of other states don't have that. Right. Shit like that. So that's what it's. It's just another tool. It's another tool in the toolbox in order to get what you want. So no, I don't think voting is pointless. I think it is easily, manipulated, and I think I can understand why people would say that they think it's pointless because they vote and then the shit they vote for doesn't pass. Well, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? So, I mean, shit. We live in a conservative country. It's also, that's another thing that leftists and liberals and progressives are kind of in denial about. The fact that large portions of this country are very, very conservative. And those people vote too. And it's like, well, you got to convince them that it's in their best interest to vote with you. And that's what politics is all about. So, anyway. Let's see. 1911 Gurdon law. I don't think abortion benefits everyone, at least not the fetus or potential person from being born. Yeah, well, I disagree there. I think when you're a fetus, you don't have rights, but that's just me. When abortion was illegal for convenience purposes, then overwhelmingly convenience-based abortions are vastly reduced. Yeah, it wasn't just illegal for convenience purposes, it was illegal for medical purposes, too. Right? For decades and decades and decades. But I'm just not I don't believe that that an outsider should have the ability to force a woman to have a child. Sorry, I don't believe that shit. I think if a woman goes, you know what, I don't want this baby, I don't think that she should have to explain why. I think that, now I could conceivably entertain the notion that if the fetus if the child is, past a certain point, like a late term abortion kind of thing, then they might as well just go ahead and have it. I can see that. And, there are late term abortion bans out there. And I can understand that. If there's a child that can survive outside of the womb, and then late term abortions, for those of you who don't know, is when they basically just kind of slip in a little thing and sever the kid's spinal cord. Right. And that, but it's otherwise a child that would be able to survive outside of the womb. That's already illegal, right? And I think we've pretty much lost the fight on that one. There are some people on the left that are even against that, who are like, because there are people on the left who say that any restrictions on abortion are bad, and I can see where they're going for it, because they kind of are taking the slippery slope attitude from it, and I can understand that. I don't think you're going to get very many people defending late-term abortions, right? But overall, I think that generally outlawing it would hurt people more than, keeping it legal. And I also think if they actually were to outlaw abortion, if the conservatives actually were to manage to get an abortion ban through the Supreme Court, I think it's going to hurt them in the long run politically more than it'll help them. I think there will be a backlash against that, especially if it was a national abortion ban. If it was a statewide ban, I think maybe it would just be a matter of time before movements got started in those states to legalize it again. But in the meantime, in the 20 or 30 years it takes for that shit to happen, thousands upon thousands of lives will get ruined. That's what I think will happen. So, you know what? I think I don't like that. I think I'm going to get rid of these things. In fact, you know what? We're going to do that right now. That doesn't look good. I was trying to put detail on the bushes right there. Kind of looks a little shitty. So we're going to get rid of these little texture things in these bushes back here. Right. Doesn't look good. And to do that, you just get your correction tape. And since I'm gonna like copy this onto like some cold press board or something before we actually color it, then this will just be like invisible. You know, this doesn't look good either. I'm just gonna toss all that. So yeah, I don't know, but you know what? I mean, oh shit! Did I just run out of this? Shit, I did. Wow. Well, anyway, good enough. What else we got? Reasons most frequently cited that having a child would interfere with a woman's education, work, or ability to care for dependents, 74%. That she could not afford a baby now, 73%. Yeah, I support that. I support a woman's ability to choose. I think that that's a valid reason that a woman cannot take care of a child, and that's why she's getting an abortion. I think that's a perfectly valid reason. Right? Because what's going to happen to that child is just going to end up in a, you know, that child is just going to end up in a foster care, foster home kind of thing to begin with, right? Or else, you know, the woman is going to put all of her plans for her future on hold, possibly permanently, in order to care for the child. And you know what? I don't blame any, you know, I can understand why people say that's, you know, shouldn't be allowed. But I don't blame any woman for taking that route. You know, just saying, okay, well, I'm just not ready right now for this child, so I'm going to choose not to have it. I think that's a perfectly valid reason. So, let's see. Chrissy, law is just pushing beliefs on people, honestly. Well, you know, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is, right? But I think there are some beliefs that we can all agree with. Pretty sure everybody out there agrees that murder is not, you know, a good thing. I think that's a belief that we all share, right? We all share the belief that stealing from other people is not a good thing. It shouldn't be allowed, right? Ripping people off, that kind of thing. You know, I think it just comes down to the particulars. Some people have beliefs that have no basis in fucking reality. Right? Some people believe in black magic, you know, or they believe in aliens, you know, something like that. They believe in tree spirits or whatever, right? Well, what if somebody wanted to make a law, you know, saying that every Thursday you had to make a sacrifice to a tree spirit or some shit like that, right? That's an example of a ridiculous belief. So it's like, I don't think it's the fact, the idea of laws in general that are flawed, you know, because you have to have some kind of guiding principle for society, right? So if you're designing your society in such a way that you want the maximum amount of people to have the maximum amount of freedom, and I say freedom and not liberty because those are different things. Liberty is something your government allows you to do. That's why you always hear guys in the military, when they're not allowed to talk about something, they always say, well, I'm not at liberty to discuss that. Right? That means I'm not allowed to talk that. I have not been given the freedom to talk about that. So when you hear, you know, freedom is something that's intrinsic to you. Freedom is, you know, I have the freedom of speech. No one is allowed to take that away. Government is not allowed to come in and say you're not allowed to have, you know, you're not allowed to say what you want anymore. You're not allowed to worship in the way you want. You know, something like that, right? We actually have the freedom to bear arms, the right to bear arms, right? So government should not be allowed to come in and say you're not allowed to own a gun anymore, even though they do. They do if you're, you know, a convicted felon. They also take away your right to vote. Personally, I think both of those things are wrong. I think, once, if you're a felon and you get out of prison, you should be able to vote and own a gun. That's what I think, but what are you going to do? So that's the difference, right? And the guiding principle of our society, right now should be that. Granting the maximum amount of freedom to people that's possible. But it doesn't really seem to be that. It really seems to be more of making the most amount of money for billionaires. That's what it really seems to be. Right. So anyway. Democrats have an agenda as well. Politics is about having an agenda. This is quite silly to say. Well, what is the Democratic agenda for the Supreme Court? Funny how when you say, well, what's the conservative Republican agenda for the Supreme Court, everybody immediately can come up with one thing. Abortion. Right off the bat. Right. What is the Democratic agenda? Why do the Democrats want to control the Supreme Court? What's their agenda? What? Restricting what? What do the Democrats want to restrict? What rights do they want to take away? Your freedom, your right to bear arms. I guess you could say that. Okay. Not really. Not really, They want to put restrictions on it. But I think you'd be surprised to see there is much larger support for the Second Amendment among leftist types than you would actually think, But okay, I'll grant you that one, I mean, here's the thing, right? Which one is more dangerous? Okay, which agenda, Democratic or Republican, do you think is worse for the country? Right. You know what? I think maybe we should make an entire video about that, because that's a discussion that we could talk about for another 2 hours all by itself. What else we got? Let's see. Democrats just want to pretend to address protects with no lasting change. From Chrissy, Democrats just want to pretend to address protects with no lasting change. You mean address issues? Address politics, you mean? I'm not sure what you mean by address protects. I think you might have meant to... I think the autocorrect might have said something for you there, Chrissy. But yeah, there are conservative Democrats. This is true, right? And there are people like Nancy Pelosi that, basically are, centrist, if not straight out conservatives, that kind of are in the business of, kowtowing to billionaires just from a different perspective. Right. So yeah, this is absolutely true. But I think there's plenty of others that actually do want to see some change. People like Bernie Sanders, for example, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you don't believe in democracy, if you don't believe in voting, whatever, I understand. If you think it's not effective, if you think it's not something that we should be wasting our time with. But I just don't understand how you're going to actually get any lasting change. Any kind of institutional change without actually trying to change the institution. Okay? So here's another problem we have. Out of control military spending. Right? Every year, we spend $600, $700, $800 billion a year on the military. We don't even, and this is money that basically just ends up in a fucking hole out there in the Middle East, right? Constantly. every single fucking year. Do you want that to end? Do you want out of control military spending to be reined in? Yes, I would hope so. I want it to end. Okay. I would hope that you would want it to end too. I would hope you'd want it to end and have that money go somewhere else. You know, maybe education or some shit like that. You know, what's it? $60 billion a year is what it would cost to provide free college for everybody. Right? You know, and this is also shit that other countries do. So it's like they can do it. How come we can't? Right? Well, how are you going to get that? How is that change going to happen without voting? What, are you going to go protest in front of the fucking Pentagon until they change it? Good luck. Good luck with that, you know. Be my guest if you think that'll help. You know what'll help more? Electing somebody who passes a law that changes the fucking budget. So, I mean, you know, I'm not saying don't try, right? I'm just saying it's not going to happen unless you want to. So anyway, let's see. Okay, 1911 greater than all. This mayor allowed CHOP to happen, which is advocating for violence against the state. Correct? Wrong. Incorrect. CHOP was not advocating for violence against the state. CHOP was not advocating for the overthrow of the United States. Not correct at all. The Seattle Autonomous Zone was set up as a zone that, you know, basically community-led policing. That's what it was for. It had nothing to do with overthrowing the United States. So the charge of sedition against them is complete and total bullshit. Okay. She disallowed police intervention, and as a result, people were killed in that zone. That has nothing to do with the charge of sedition. Right? And she did not disallow police in that zone. She allowed them to set up that zone. She allowed them to put borders. The police were still allowed to go in there if people were shot, shit like that. But they couldn't just barge in arbitrarily. They had to basically clear it with the guys running it. That's what it was about. All right. It's not like it was a police-free zone. It was an experiment in community-led policing, first and foremost. That's what CHOP was about. Okay. And, you know, the mayor probably set it up to placate people. I mean, that's what I said. She set it up to placate them and not actually solve any problems. Right? And that's partially why it was allowed to fail. And then when people started getting shot, let's remember at least 2 of those people who were shot at CHOP, you know, were, one of them confirmed was shot by a fucking Proud Boy. The other one happened on the same night, less than a block away. Most likely that was also an example of right-wing violence. So let's not forget that. Let's not, you know, keep that in mind. Yeah, people were killed. They were killed by fucking right-wingers. Right? Killed by fucking Proud Boy assholes who went there specifically for the reason, you know, the reason of, like, you know, going around and beating up and murdering protesters. Let's not forget that shit. But anyway, so let's see. Protesters then marched to her home, and then she had the police protect her from said violent thugs, aka protesters. So, what's your point? What's your point there, exactly? That the cops are not supposed to do their jobs? That's what you're trying to say? So wait, so she allowed this thing to open, so then she just doesn't ever get any protection from police ever again? Is that what you're trying to say? You know, this is what I don't get here, okay? Police are supposed to be professionals, okay? It's not just doing their jobs. It's upholding the law, all right? They're not supposed to be allowed to choose when and where they uphold the law, all right? So the fact that you're seeing all of these cops walking off the job, stuff like that, because there's some pushback from when they're like, so because people are mad and they don't want them to arbitrarily fucking murder people anymore, you know, that's bullshit too. All right, because this is exactly what the cops will tell you. I'm just trying to do my job. These people are getting in my way. We're not allowed to, they're not allowed to tell us when and where we're allowed to do our job. Oh, but you are, huh? So this the Seattle mayor, I guess it's open season on her, right? No, that's bullshit. You don't just, you're not allowed to just give up your right to police protection, okay? You should have, here's the thing, you don't have a right. I misphrased that. All right, I said that wrong. You actually do not have a right to police protection in this country, which is bullshit. I think that's bullshit. Okay. That's actually something that came through the court. But I guess what I meant to say was that through whatever action of yours, whatever action you do should not have any effect on whether or not the law applies to you. Right. And from that same, so basically, even if you are an advocate for, let's say, disbanding the police, if somebody comes and beats the shit out of you, the cops should be obligated to come and protect you. Right? Because police should be non-political. I think that's the best way for me to get that. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Right? Police should be non-political. Right? The application of the law should be non-political as well. So, it shouldn't matter what anybody says, what anybody does. The law should apply to them equally. That should be, that was, until recently, one of the guiding principles of our society, that we're all equal before the law. Not so much anymore. The Republicans have kind of done away with that as well. Now we have laws that apply to some people and not other people. Especially if you're the fucking president. You can just get away with whatever you want. Right. So, yeah, sorry. I don't give a shit if the woman, was out there protesting in the streets herself. Right. Holding a sign saying all cops are bastards. Doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't matter what she fucking says. She's still entitled to police protection. So that's bullshit, dude. Sorry. I don't care. That's a load of fucking crap. I do not agree at all. Right. Anyway. 1911 girl, then all. He wants to punish sanctuary cities because it is against his agenda. Oh, yeah? We agree there. Again, these cities protect illegal aliens, which is literally a crime. No, it isn't. Maybe we should keep 2A sanctuaries, not enforce NFA. That's not a crime. It's not a crime to, so what's the sanctuary cities, what do? They refuse to allow their police departments to participate in enforcing immigration law. That's not against the law. The law says that immigration is handled by ICE and the federal government. Is that not true? So basically these cities are saying, well, that's your jurisdiction, you handle it. And we're not going to help you out because we don't have to. Law doesn't say that they have to help them. So no, that's not against the law. Right? And to be honest, it's basically a made-up boogeyman. Right? That doesn't really do much to fucking... Because when you hear the sound, the word sanctuary city, it sounds like if you're an illegal alien or immigrant or whatever, then you can go to that city and you'll be protected. That's not true at all. No. You can still very much be caught, prosecuted, and deported. The only thing all sanctuary city means is that city resources are not going to go to that effort. So you're not going to have police departments working with immigration officers in order to deport people. And I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I don't see anything wrong with that whatsoever. It's their job. It's not the job of the Los Angeles fucking police department or the sheriff's department or whatever to enact, immigration law, right? No, it isn't. In fact, there was a thing not that long ago, if I remember right. In fact, let me see if I can look this up. Let's see, Arizona. There was a thing. God, I can't remember, from a few years back. Immigration bill, and it was a law passed in Arizona. Arizona's immigration law. Here it is, April 2010. Let's read through this real quick. If you guys remember this. Arizona's immigration enforcement laws, and it was SB 1070. This was it, right? Basically said that was essentially, this was something that happened in 2010. I don't know if you guys remember this. Basically said Arizona was going to start enforcing their own immigration law. They were going to start using state resources, essentially. This is, long story short, too long, didn't read on this. Basically says that they're going to start using state resources in order to, enforce immigration laws. And that got struck down, if I remember right, that got struck down by the Supreme Court. And the reason why is because immigration is a federal jurisdiction. It is not a state jurisdiction. So you're not, when you come to the United States, you're not applying for citizenship in a state. You're applying to citizenship, in the United States, right? On the federal level. That's federal jurisdiction. So that's why that got cut. And I remember that because that was a big fucking deal. And on right-wing radio at the time, people were pissed off at that. And it's like, well, state law does not supersede federal law. Right? That's how it works. So, no, man. But you're right. He wants to punish sanctuary cities because it's against his agenda. You're definitely right. And that's just, another reason that's more evidence that we live in two Americas. We live in two different nations in this country. And we're kind of in the middle of a low-key, cold civil war where the president of the United States has personal vendettas against some of the states because they're working, because he doesn't like the fucking shit that they do. It's ridiculous. Let's see. 1911 greater. Alright. Chrissy Mania. Police are going to favor the government, man. Yes, they are. They always will be. They will until we can get some community-led policing going. Until we can get some oversight on the cops. They definitely will. Trump has put up sections of walls on the border between Mexico and the U.S. That isn't accurate. He also reduced immigration lottery, which is something that we should be done. Trump has built something like how much wall has actually been built? How much Trump wall? Let's see. How many miles have been built? 650 miles of barriers take a variety of forms. Okay. Remember Trump said that, Mexico was supposed to pay for this and they didn't. Let's see. It looks like most of the wall that has been built there was already walls there. So it's kind of stuff that they've already had. They just kind of reinforced, and then most of it is considered. Okay, nearly all of the new fencing Trump administration has built so far. Okay, let me show you what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at the Washington Post, and let's see. Nearly all of the new fencing Trump administration has built so far is considered replacement fencing. swapping out smaller, older vehicle barriers for more elaborate and costly border wall systems. So, yeah, not exactly a lot of hasn't really been built. So this was the existing barrier, pre-construction status of the southern border. So all they've really done is kind of taken shit that was already there and swapped out. So, yeah, they haven't really built anything. Not really, not much in the way of new wall. So yeah, that didn't happen. And you know, Mexico was supposed to pay for that. That didn't happen either. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you want to believe it, sure, believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, but that's not what the facts say. Anyway, let's see. What else we got? Dude, you sound like an anti-vaxxer. Don't be an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, Chrissy Mania. I very much believe in science of vaccines. I have gotten all of my vaccines, you know. So, although I usually don't bother with a flu vaccine every year because I never get the flu, but I think I will get it this year, you know, because I don't want to actually get the flu and have it, confused for COVID-19. So I'm definitely going to get my flu vaccine this year. I am not an anti-vaxxer. Please. Definitely not. But I don't trust a vaccine that is pushed through like the one that American pharmaceutical companies are pushing through this year. I don't trust that. And so if they announce it, and if I don't think myself personally that enough testing has been done for it, then I'm going to wait until, a few months pass. And I'm going to wait and see if there are any reported side effects. Because I don't trust them. I don't trust Donald Trump. I don't trust American pharmaceutical companies. And I am part of a high-risk group. I have pre-existing conditions. Right. So if I actually get, the big C word, I'm basically an ex-smoker with high blood pressure who is 25 pounds overweight. Right. I'm happy to say that I am no longer obese anymore. My BMI has gone down to where I'm just normal overweight and not obese, so that's good. But I'm part of a high risk thing, and I'm not gonna put myself at risk. I don't care, and I'll just wear a mask. I'll continue to wear a mask until that vaccine, enough time has passed to where people are reporting that it's safe, and then I'll take it. Okay. So that's if it comes back that 3 or 4 months later, after a few million people have taken it and there hasn't been any reports of major side effects, I'm all over that vaccine. All right. Because I don't want to go to the fucking movies. I really, really, really want to get sushi, and I want to go to the movies. I don't think you understand. I don't like being at home all the fucking time. I'm going nuts. My anniversary is next month, and I think I'm debating whether I want to risk going to a restaurant with my wife for our fucking anniversary, for our 5-year anniversary. Right. So it's like, no, man, I'm not having a good time staying at home all day fucking playing video games and drawing. And, although working from home is actually kind of nice, I hope we still work from home. Right. So, no, not an anti-vaxxer at all. I can't stand anti-vaxxers. I think anti-vaxxers are a plague on fucking this universe. But I think, being cautious in this instance, when we have an anti-science president who fills his cabinet with fucking bootlickers and yes men who are going to tell him what he wants to hear, coupled with a for-profit pharmaceutical company that has billions of dollars at stake. I think that's a recipe for disaster. So, anyway. For-profit companies make all of our drugs. I'm going to trust them with this coronavirus. Well, you can trust them all you want. I'm not going to trust them. Not with this. And, you know, if you really want to trust a for-profit company, you know, I suggest you look up thalidomide. I did a whole live stream on that. You know, thalidomide was a drug that was pushed in the 50s as a, you know, pain reliever and sleep aid for pregnant women, and it resulted in deformations to the unborn baby's limbs. And because there wasn't sufficient testing, and it took about 5 years for that to for thalidomide to actually like for them to make the connection between this drug and, you know, so they call them flipper babies. You'd see, you know, look up thalidomide side effects. I'm not going to do it because the last time I did it in a live stream, it almost got my fucking channel banned because they're like little babies and shit. And, you know, the YouTube robots don't like that. But look that up. Look that up. That's an example of what can happen when a for-profit, you know, pharmaceutical company is allowed to sell us drugs which are not properly tested. Now, the thing is, right, something like 10,000 children were, you know, affected by thalidomide. So 10,000 people, right, were born with malformed arms and legs because of thalidomide in Europe. It didn't happen in the United States because the FDA did not approve it. So if we would have allowed the FDA to, you know, if the FDA were like allowed this drug to go through, because it didn't have proper testing, they said there wasn't enough testing and that's why they didn't approve it. And if it was allowed to be approved in the United States, then we would have had 10,000 children born in the United States with messed up limbs. And we didn't, because the FDA did their job. Right. And if the FDA were allowed to do their job in this case, I would trust the vaccine. Right. I don't think that they're being allowed to do their job sufficiently and correctly. I think they're getting interference from the White House. So, and I want to make that clear. The fact that I don't trust this vaccine has nothing to do with the science behind it. It has everything to do with who's in charge and who's trying to fucking, and has everything to do with Donald Trump and him trying to fucking push through a vaccine because he thinks it's going to get him reelected. That's why I'm not going to trust it until it's like proven to be safe. And sorry, that's just my stance. I don't care. So, you know, and be my guest if you want to like subject yourself to be a fucking guinea pig for AstraZeneca. Be my guest. I ain't gonna fucking do it. Anyway, I think that's all we got, folks. Thank you guys for commenting and staying on. It has been a good 2.5 hours, and I think we had a pretty good live stream, I'd say. Here's what we got so far. Let's look at our artwork. It's coming along here. Coming along, looking good, you know. Let me just move that over here so I can get a closer look. Yeah, it looks alright. Does that look a little blurry? I hope not. Come on, focus. Yeah, it looks okay. Anyway. Yeah, I think what we're going to do, we'll continue on with this. I might actually do a little inking over the next couple of days. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to Xerox this onto either some really thick cardstock or a cold press board or something like that. And then I'm actually gonna use like colored pencils and markers and watercolors and shit to color this in, as opposed to Photoshop. So we can get something, you know, something cool. And the reason why is like, you know, this paper is really thin, and you don't want to work on really thin paper like this with traditional media, because then it'll warp. You know, so you want to usually do something like that on some kind of thick, conceivably something like a cold press board that will take liquid-based media really well. So that's what that's what we'll work on for next time. Anyway, but I think it's coming along pretty good. I'm just doing some detail in the grass and shit like that. And I guess it's time for us to end this. So I'm just gonna very, very quickly, because I think I have my whole ending thing here. I'm gonna stop doing that. At the end of every stream, I usually take 10 minutes to go through all of my fucking social media. I'm just going to stop doing that. And what I'm going to do instead is just record a video of that so that you can, see where it is. And if you support me, you can choose to support me. But what I'll do for now is I'll just put down in the links below links to my Patreon and my SD shop and Facebook and all that stuff. So if you like what I do and you want to follow me, feel free to check out, and it'll be in the comments below on this thing. Check me out on social media. Check me out on Etsy. If you like what I do and you don't want to if you don't want to sign up for Patreon, but you still want to support me, go to my Etsy shop. I sell artwork and prints and things like that. And and I also have a DeviantArt and some Instagram and shit like that, so you can follow me if you like what I do. And thank you all so much for hanging out. Thank you both, Chrissy and 1911, and we had a couple of other viewers too. Thank you, whoever you were, and I will see you all next time. So, adios, folks.